Many of these graves on the Mount of Olives are over 3,000 years old. So when Jesus was coming down the Mount of Olives and into Jerusalem, he would be walking past these graves.
For centuries, the Mount of Olives has been more than a landscape of stone and history. It has been a stage where prophecy, mystery, and time itself seem to converge. Yet today, something unprecedented is unfolding across its ancient slopes. Strange lights appear above forgotten tombs. Old graves crack open after distant tremors. Entire rows of burial sites seem to drift slowly toward Jerusalem's sealed eastern gate, the very gate tied to the Messiah's return. As global tension rises and prophetic signs intensify, the world is beginning to ask, are these events mere coincidence or part of a divine timeline? The Mount of Olives has long been a place where history and holiness intertwine, yet only in recent years have observers begun noticing unusual phenomena unfolding across its ancient terrain. Scholars comparing centuries-old landscape documents with contemporary geological analyses have discovered a subtle but persistent shift occurring within the burial grounds. Entire stretches of tombs appear to be slowly descending the hillside, edging toward the base of the Kidron Valley. This drift, influenced partly by natural topographic movement, gives the impression that the cemetery is gradually rearranging itself. Many who study prophecy interpret this as more than coincidence. To them, it resembles a vast assembly, inching closer to the very threshold tied to future redemption, as though the land itself understands where the next chapter of history will open. Another layer of mystery comes from a phenomenon witnessed after minor seismic tremors across the region. Although such quakes often go unnoticed by residents and leave modern structures untouched, caretakers and visitors occasionally report finding ancient tombs split or slightly opened soon after these small vibrations. The precision and timing of these fractures raise questions among those who view the world through a prophetic lens. While scientists can point to pressure changes or fault line responses, others sense deeper symbolism, the notion that the mountain reacts to movements beneath the surface in a way that echoes long-anticipated events. In their eyes, these openings resemble the first faint signs of a much larger awakening, foretold by generations of believers. Adding to the intrigue are accounts of faint bluish glows drifting above certain graves during the night. Witnesses describe a soft luminosity that moves unlike any known artificial light. It glides low, pulsating gently, before fading into the darkness. Occasional recordings show a mist-like shape, breathing in slow rhythms, hovering momentarily above specific tombs. Some religious teachers interpret these lights as spiritual manifestations, a sign of expectancy among the departed. Scientists who have examined available footage remain unable to provide a definitive explanation, leaving the phenomenon suspended between faith and mystery. Parallel to these unexplained occurrences is another discovery made through layered comparisons of older sketches, British mandate surveys, and modern drone photography. These compilations reveal that the cemetery's expansion over centuries has been anything but random. Instead of spreading uniformly across the hillside, the graves form sweeping arcs that subtly direct one's gaze toward Jerusalem's eastern wall. From higher vantage points, these arcs resemble an immense congregation facing a single focal point. It's as though time itself guided thousands of burials into a unified posture aimed at the sealed gateway. The graves closest to the valley appear newer, but even the older upper rows subtly angle toward the same focal point, creating a natural corridor of stone that seems to draw the eye directly to the gate. Some scholars have noted that the geometry of this expansion resembles a massive congregation turning toward a single point of spiritual significance, whether intentionally or subconsciously shaped by tradition. The number of tombs itself deepens the mystery. With more than 150,000 burials recorded, the Mount of Olives hosts one of the world's largest active Jewish cemeteries. Among these graves are prophets, rabbis, scholars, judges, and entire family lines stretching back 3 millennia. Yet, despite the vast number, nearly all graves share one unmistakable detail. This unity of orientation is rare in cemeteries across the world and speaks to a long-standing expectation that whatever is coming, it will unfold on the horizon, framed by the Eastern Gate. Jewish tradition adds another dimension. According to ancient writings, the resurrection of the righteous will begin not in a vague spiritual realm, but in a precise physical location, starting on the Mount of Olives. This belief is rooted in passages from the prophets and expanded in rabbinical commentary, suggesting that the earth beneath this mountain will one day open in response to a divine arrival. Because of this, families have historically paid extraordinary sums to secure burial plots as close to the valley's edge as possible. For them, proximity is not symbolic. It is a position of expectation. Christian theology sees a parallel message. Paul's writings about the dead, rising at the sound of a heavenly command, resonate deeply with the cemetery's forward-leaning posture. For many believers, the advancing graves reflect a truth embedded in the natural world. Creation itself leans toward fulfillment. Whether viewed through spiritual, historical, or archaeological lenses, the pattern challenges coincidence. Something, or someone, has drawn the gaze of generations toward the same ancient gate. Before we continue to the next unfolding sign, stay with us. The story only grows more astonishing from here. Across from the Mount of Olives, beyond the silent rows of graves pressing toward the valley, stands one of the most enigmatic structures in all of Jerusalem. The Eastern Gate, also called the Golden Gate. Unlike the other gates surrounding the Old City, this one has remained shut for nearly 5 centuries, sealed with massive stone blocks that have not been disturbed since the days of the Ottoman Empire. To the casual observer, it may appear simply as an architectural relic, another ancient doorway lost to time. But to those who study biblical prophecy, the Eastern Gate represents something far more profound, a divine lock, awaiting a divine key, a threshold between what the world is now and what it is destined to become. The prophet Ezekiel described this gate with remarkable clarity. In Ezekiel 44, he wrote that the gate facing east must remain closed because the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered through it. According to Jewish and Christian interpretation, this refers to the Messiah entering Jerusalem in glory. Once he passes through, the gate is sealed not by human decree, but by divine authority until the moment of his return. The fact that this gate is sealed to this very day, despite wars, conquests, earthquakes, and political upheaval, gives the prophecy an eerie sense of preservation, as though history itself has conspired to protect it for a predetermined moment. Many structures in Jerusalem have been destroyed and rebuilt countless times, yet this one gate remains frozen in spiritual purpose. Adding to the mystery, in 1541 Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent ordered the Eastern Gate to be permanently sealed. He even established a Muslim cemetery directly in front of it, believing that a holy man or priest would not cross a graveyard, thereby preventing the Jewish Messiah from entering the city. Ironically, this attempt to block prophecy has only strengthened the prophetic narrative. The sealed gate now stands as a visual symbol of human resistance contrasted with divine inevitability. Efforts to prevent fulfillment have instead become part of the prophecy's dramatic stage setting. The gate's position facing the Mount of Olives also aligns precisely with Zechariah 14:4, which declares that the Messiah will stand on the Mount of Olives at his return, causing the mountain to split in two. From that vantage point, the first path into Jerusalem is the Eastern Gate itself. Geography and prophecy converge in a way that feels less like coincidence and more like a deliberate alignment woven into the very bones of the land. It is as though the city was designed with a future moment in mind. A moment that has not yet arrived, but toward which everything silently leans. Beyond prophecy, the gate holds deep emotional and spiritual weight. It embodies anticipation, centuries of longing, whispered prayers, and unfulfilled expectation. Pilgrims from around the world stare at its unmoving stones and imagine the instant they will burst open. The advancing graves below seem to echo this posture of waiting. Together, the mountain, the valley, and the gate form a prophetic corridor, a silent axis that points toward an event still to come. The Eastern Gate is not merely closed. It is reserved. It waits, just as the graves wait facing forward, locked in expectation, holding its breath for the day when prophecy becomes reality. In our generation, the world is experiencing an unusual convergence of turmoil, natural instability, and an intensified global fixation on Jerusalem conditions that echo the prophetic patterns described in Scripture. What once seemed distant now feels startlingly familiar. Geopolitical friction, shifting alliances, unexpected earthquakes, and economic unease. The planet appears unsettled, as if the foundations of creation are groaning under the pressure of approaching change. At the center of this growing tension stands Jerusalem, a city both small in size and immense in spiritual gravity. Zechariah's ancient declaration that it would become a cup of trembling for all nations has never felt more accurate. Every decision involving the city, its borders, its holy sites, even its archaeology, can instantly trigger conflict or controversy across the world. Jerusalem has become more than a location. It is the axis around which political, religious, and prophetic currents collide. Yet beyond politics and prophecy, Jerusalem has also become a focal point for strange and unexplained phenomena. Local residents and visitors alike report unusual atmospheric events, unexplained sounds around the Temple Mount, and rare light anomalies near historical sites. These occurrences rarely make international headlines, but they add to the growing sense that the city is holding its breath. Scholars, journalists, and even secular researchers quietly acknowledge that Jerusalem seems to be experiencing a cluster of mysteries that resist easy explanation. This sharpened attention naturally extends toward the Mount of Olives and the sealed Eastern Gate. Archaeologists observe the cemetery's ongoing expansion. Historians re-examine the alignment of its ancient tombs. Travelers photograph the unmoving stones of the gate as though expecting them to shift. Even non-religious analysts admit that the stone fields pressing toward the valley create an atmosphere that feels intentionally arranged, as if something long anticipated is drawing near. Geological data intensifies this impression. The Mount of Olives rests directly atop a fault line, an innocuous detail until one reads Zechariah's prophecy describing the mountain splitting when the Messiah appears. Rising seismic patterns in the broader region cause many to wonder whether nature itself is aligning with a script written long before modern instruments existed. Meanwhile, global crises deepen instead of easing. Economies destabilize, extreme weather grows more erratic, and military tensions ripple across continents. Through it all, Jerusalem remains the focal point constant. To some, these developments are random. To others, they are signals that the ancient warnings are not merely symbolic, but active, unfolding in real time. Regardless of interpretation, one reality is undeniable. The world is shifting, and Jerusalem stands at the center of that unfolding mystery. Before we continue, remember to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next part. Across Scripture, prophecy is never presented as a collection of predictions meant to satisfy curiosity. It is a call to alertness, a summons for believers to align their lives with a divine timeline that continues moving, whether people notice it or not.